Okay, let's go ahead and hit F2, and we are going to start the production. And look at that, it's done in 1 second. Over 12 hours down to 1 second. That's an amazing thing. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you the UCH Blacklight. Old guys, pride and joy. I was thinking to myself at one point while I was doing this, hey, you know what, that kind of looks like a blacklight. And there you go. The name came into being. Welcome back, everybody, to Empyrion Galactic Survival on Alpha 10.4. I'm an old guy gaming, and I am very excited, guys, because we are ready. We're ready to build the Blacklight. My premier, most expensive, most extensive, most expansive, how many exp words can I come up with, build that I have ever done in this game. It took me months to build this, and I actually built it across 3 alphas, 7, 8, and 9. But, of course, I didn't work on it all the time. I could only work on it here and there. What I've been doing off camera is I've gone around and mined up just a crap ton of ores. So I stuck around on Ulit for quite some time, and I got a whole bunch of Erestrum and Zascosium from that planet. And then we came over to Threfo here, and I got a bunch more Sathium and Neodymium. Got some cobalt on that planet too, and some copper and stuff like that. I still have quite a few asteroids in my own system here in Hypanos that we can mine for some of the more basic ores too. And of course, there's always the moon for the Promethium and the Pentaxid. So we got quite a nice little supply of ore that we still have left over even after the factory. But I also found and went through the Hyperion wreck on Ulit planet, and I salvaged some of that to get the blocks, and I got enough blocks off of salvaging that to actually get the factory all the way down to 1 second. If you guys remember when I first started this build, this is an over 12-hour build if you do nothing but just feed ingots into it. So just by simply taking the blocks apart on some of those POIs and feeding the components in whole, I've got the production time down to 1 second. In fact, that actually happened way before I actually finished the rest of the resource requirements. So this guy is ready to spawn in. I'm very excited to do that. So what we're going to do is we're not going to spawn it. We're going to build it because the factory's going to build it. It's going to build it for us in 1 second, which is cool. And then we are going to bring it into the world, and I'll give you a tour of the ship, and then we're going to upgrade it for Alpha 10. The only thing that off the top of my head that I can think of that it really needs is that it needs the shield generator. It has everything else on it except for that. Right now, the Blacklight is a very large ship, way larger than the Chisel. So we're going to actually spawn it out here in front of the platform. So let's get out to about here-ish. I'm going to kind of get probably maybe right here and back a little more. I would call the Blacklight a on the upward side of a medium-sized capital ship. It's pretty good size. It's not like the biggest ship in the world, but in the game, I should say, but it's a sizable ship for sure. Okay, let's go ahead and hit F2, and we are going to start the production. And look at that. It's done in 1 second. Over 12 hours down to 1 second. That's an amazing thing. Okay, here we go. Let's hit the spawn button. And there she is. Beautiful. Okay, so let's get her. I want to get her as close to the platform as possible without it causing some problems. So here, let's, it looks like we're clipping into the chisel there. So let's bring it out to about here-ish. Yeah, that should be good. Okay, we're going to hit the O, keep our hands on the O button so she's nice and level, and boom. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you the UCH Blacklight. Old guys, pride and joy. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take a tour of the Blacklight, and then we will figure out where we're going to put the shield generator. I'll tell you what, too. Let's put some fuel in her so she lights up, and you'll see why I named the ship the Blacklight. Okay, so let's look at her from outside first, and then we'll go from the inside. And I'm gonna go. I'm going to go on this side, the darker side too. And that is why she's called the Blacklight. I wasn't actually planning on using that name, but when I was doing the lights on this ship, with the black and blue, primary colors, black and blue that I was using, and then of course changing the lights to blue too, I was thinking to myself at one point while I was doing this, hey, you know what, that kind of looks like a Blacklight. And there you go. The name came into being. I had originally intended for this ship to be a Corvette class ship, but depending upon how you define those ship sizes, I think it's probably a little bit larger than a Corvette. It's almost more like a small destroyer class, I would think, in terms of its size. I'm not an expert at all, in naval ship sizes and that sort of thing, so take that with a grain of salt. But it was originally intended to be a Corvette class ship, but I think it's probably safer to call it more a destroyer class. And it has the full maximum amount of allowed guns on it that the vanilla settings will allow too. So it's completely maxed out with guns, and they are all of course retracted right now, so we can see the beautiful lines of the ship herself. Okay, so let's kind of look at the outside real quick, and then we'll take an inside tour. So this of course is the bridge, and we can look into the bridge from outside here. That's the captain's chair right there. I like that little round seat. And then there's some, other stations in there. There's a small constructor if we needed to make something quickly on the bridge. And all of the other the seats in here are also cockpits. So that way, the main reason I did that is just because I liked the way that they actually looked. So everything in here is a cockpit. There is an entryway up front here to get down into there, which we'll do in a little bit. This is not a ship that's designed for PvP, by the way. If somebody wanted to use it for PvP, they would need to make some modifications to it. And I have some ideas on how you would do that. So if you are interested in using the ship in PvP, let me know, and I can just let you know where the weak spots and stuff are that you'd have to bolster. This is the one and only multi-turret that the ship has. And of course I have it out in front, so that way I can just kind of pull up to an asteroid or whatever it is, a POI, and take it apart from there. I do take, and I'm going to have to build these, I do take actual mining lasers and just temporarily attach them to the front of the ship if we need to mine a big asteroid or something like that. So then coming down through here, this is like the living area or the commons area for the crew to hang out when they're on break and watch TV and that sort of thing, watch a football game. And then of course it goes, this is one of the crew cabins in here. On that side, the other side, there's like the captain's and the first mate's cabin, which are larger, more well-equipped rooms. Then we have like the medical bay back in here that we'll look at from the inside later on. Let's see, down below, there's not a lot to see down below in terms of looking inside of the ship, but these are all retracted thrusters here. In fact, you know what we could do? Let's go ahead and bring those suckers out. So I've got a pretty good mix of weapons on this ship. We got some cannons, we got some rockets, we got pulse lasers, we got pulse cannons, we've got artillery turrets on the wings over here. Pretty much every type of turret in the game that you can put on a capital ship is on this ship. Now, keep in mind too that this is a PvE ship, first of all, and secondly, if somebody wants to use this ship, they can, and this is on the workshop too, by the way. If somebody wants to use a ship, they can change out these weapons to whatever they want. So I'm not suggesting, that this is the best configuration you can possibly have. It's just there, as a starting point. Okay, that's a flak cannon right there. And so the ship has pretty good coverage too of all angles, because notice these turrets are pointing down, so they're going to be able to shoot at stuff directly below or directly above the ship, where and these can shoot down and out to the side, and these can shoot up and out to the side, and so on and so forth. We have the actual guns on the wings themselves. So we've got rocket launchers and we've got pulse cannons, and I also have some pulse cannons down here. So I think, I tried to do a fairly good job of coverage, with the weapons on this ship. But here again, I did not design it specifically or primarily for PvP. So there's going to be some things that would need to be fixed up and changed around if somebody wanted to actually use this for PvP. Okay, so Then we have 3 decks on this ship. So this is the top deck here, and this is where we'll typically park our small vessels. So the Jade Jet will fit in there. It's a little snug, but it does fit in there, and everything's got, you know, automatic sensors on the doors and stuff like that. And then this is like the flight deck here, so more small vessels can land out here. So if I have, you know, friends who are going to come with me on an expedition and they want to bring their ships in multiplayer, they can do that. Of course, there's a repair bay right there. These wings on the outside are the engine. Basically, they're the engine compartments. This is where Scotty the engineer would hang out, and they're a lot larger than you might think, because we can actually go in there. There's a whole room inside of here with equipment and workstations and all kinds of cool stuff that we'll show you here in just a little while. I've got the shutters covering all of the thrusters to give them protection. I've heard a rumor though that in an upcoming update we may not be able to do this anymore, and so if and when that time comes, I'll have to, you know, have to fix the ship. I'll have to upgrade it from there. But at present, every thruster on the ship has these protective shutters. Okay, so let's see. That's pretty much it. Let's take just a quick bird's eye view of the top of the ship. That's what she looks like from up above. So pretty cool, pretty cool. Oh, I was going to show you one other thing. There is, at the front of the ship here, there is a little, you know, walkway or observation deck right here that you can come out on. So if you're in Atmo, and then this door just leads down into that to the upper flight deck, which we'll take a closer look at here in just a moment. Down on the belly of the ship, we've got this entryway that goes into the lower deck, where I have, you know, all the storage and all the construction equipment and all that sort of thing, and where we will, you know, where we park the hover vessels. And you can also park small vessels in there too. They have to be fairly small though. And then, you know, this is just kind of the belly of the ship here, and I just kind of decorated it, you know, with the different textures in the game, and I think it looks pretty damn cool. These windows here look into the lower deck as well. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the exterior of the ship. Let's go ahead now, and we'll pretty much just start at the top, and we'll go down through the bays. We'll look at the bays first, the engine compartments, and then I'll take you up through the front portion of the ship. So this is where we will park the Jade Jet in here, and we've got you know, an armor station, a repair station, oxygen, health station, and the repair console from here, because the bay is off at the end of this deck here. There's also a couple of seats, so people, you know, if they need to get into the ship quick and then just get seated so we can take off, there's a couple of passenger seats there. As mentioned, this is the part that goes out onto the observation deck on the top of the ship here. And then, hold on a sec. And I think that's pretty much it for this deck here. All right, so that's the upper deck for small vessels, for the Jade Jet in particular. Now, when we get down into the mid deck, this is a very large deck, and the purpose of this deck is to house my Cylon Raider small vessel. In Alpha 7, I think it was, or maybe early 8, I can't remember. I built a huge, absolutely enormous small vessel and modeled it after the Cylon Raider in the new Battlestar Galactica Raider. And that also took me a long time to build. It was a huge project. And I am going to actually bring that into this game too and show that to you guys, because this is its home. And so this whole bay is designed to hold that Raider. Now keep in mind, we're talking about a small vessel here, guys, so this kind of gives you an idea of how large that small vessel actually is, because it takes this entire space to house the Raider. So yeah, what I'm probably going to do too is I was just kind of thinking about this in my head. I'm probably going to remove all of this stuff over here, and we're going to put the shield generator in this corner. And you know, this is like a backup cockpit, which I might see there if we can just put it down below. It's kind of like an emergency cockpit here with a panel. I'm not sure what that panel's supposed to say. Oh, maybe I never put anything in there to begin with. Looks like I didn't. Okay. All right, so yeah, this is the mid deck. There's more seats for friends to sit down back here without having to go all the way up to the bridge, which is kind of a long trip. So that way, if we need to take off quickly, we can. Okay, so now we have the port side engine room and the starboard side engine room. They're both pretty much a mirror of one another. So if I show you one, I've pretty much shown you the other. So now we're going into the wings of the ship that I showed you from the outside. Okay, so we've got our thrusters in here. I've got little consoles set up for the engineering folks to do their thing. You know what we're going to do too? We need to put some crew in here. So we'll go buy a bunch of crew and put them in here and decorate it up. So this is basically the engine room. There's a little stairwell that they can come up here into the thrusters to access and work on the thrusters. Going out this direction. Little console, you can kind of come around here and look out the ship at our space base there. So it's pretty cool. Pretty nice little engine compartment setup here. You have to get gravity going to get off of there. And like I said, the starboard side is pretty much a mirror image of this side. I put a bunch of fuel tanks in here too because, man, this baby uses a lot of fuel. This is not a cheap ship to fly, so you better be in-game and you better have lots of resources if you're planning on using this ship. Okay, so this is just the starboard side. Again, it's the same thing, just a mirror image of what we saw on the port side. Okay, all right, so that takes care of engineering, or at least the engine compartment. These big bay doors have sensors when you get close enough to them, and they go out to the rear of the ship, and this is pretty much where we fly into the ship there. Okay, let's go down to the lower deck now. These have, again, automated ramps on sensors on both ends of the ship for the hover vessel to easily get in from either side. Again, I've got a crap ton of fuel tanks set up on this side of the ship, just to give you an idea of how much fuel this thing actually needs. And then over here we've got our constructors. They're color coded. So this constructor is dedicated to ammo. This one's dedicated to I got the signs up here: fuel, O2, ore and stone, ingots, general processing, etc., etc. And then these are just spare cargo bins that can be used for whatever is needed. And the idea here was that as I assign these bins to other things, I could just add that to the sign to give it a label. I might redo these with the newer style. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. I also have it set up to at least to get started with logistics and weight and volume if people are actually using that. I know some people love it, some people hate it. I'm kind of in the in-between state. Just a quick side note, you guys. I've been thinking about maybe trying to do a series with the volume and the weight enabled. A couple of you have asked about that, and I've had one or two people commented about on the stream too. I'm willing to give it a try, but I'm going to tell you up front that if it's not fun for me, then I'm not going to, I wouldn't keep doing it. It doesn't sound fun to me, and people who are in my community who have tried it have told me that it's not fun, that it's a big pain in the butt. I know, people like Spange and so forth have been using it and so forth, but I guess that's a decision that I really need to make for myself, and the only way I'm going to really know that is if I try it. So I probably will, maybe even do like a little separate side series just to try it out and see if I like it. Now, if I like the way that it works, and I love, working with the logistics, then it'll become a normal thing. But at present, of course, as you guys know that have been watching me all along, I don't use the weight and volume. So let me know in the comments, what your guys' opinion of it is. Okay, I don't mind adding it from the standpoint of making the game more challenging and more interesting, but it's got to be fun too, right? If it's not fun, if it's boring, if it's too hard, if it doesn't make sense, then I'm wasting my time. Okay, so that's kind of where I stand with this. So just let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you've tried it. Let me know if you think it's worthwhile or if it's not worthwhile. If you do think it's worthwhile, what are some tips and tricks to make it work good? Stuff like that. It'd be interesting to hear from you. Okay, anyway, back on track here. So I do have, this set up with controllers and with some extensions. So it could, it can be used with weights and volumes to a point, but, I would say a fairly limited point. If you really wanted to stock this ship up and get a lot of stuff going on, you would probably have to redo this. Now, all of this stuff over here is not strictly necessary. It's more for decoration and stuff, but all of this could be removed, and then you'd have this whole other half of this side of the bay to expand with your extensions, and maybe spread these out or whatever you wanted to do. So there's some flexibility here for people who want to use the logistics and volume system with this ship. Okay, this is all pretty much kept clear over here because this is where I park hover vessels. Now in Alpha 9 I had two of the camo miners, so I parked them both there, and that's just because I did a lot of multiplayer too. Here I have a little, almost like a hover bike craft that I built that I had parked there, and then I had a couple of larger hover vessels that I parked along here. I'm not necessarily at all going to spawn all of those or build all those in this series. We might just use those spots for something else. Okay, so anyway, that pretty much takes care of the lower deck here, and we might see about maybe moving that emergency cockpit down here. One advantage to having it down here is this is 90% of the time, this is where I enter the ship, from this lower deck. So having it right nearby so we could quickly take off if we needed to does kind of make sense to have it down here. And what we could maybe do is put it maybe in this corner here and not have that parking space, because we still have a lot of parking spaces over here. So that's kind of what I'm thinking that we're going to do. All right, so let's go on up here. We have an elevator on both sides to come back up to the mid deck. And now let's take a look at the forward portion of the ship. This elevator just goes all the way back up to the top deck where we parked the J-Jet. Now, this is also an engineering section, but that has all the other equipment that's not like the thrusters and stuff. So here we got our warp drive, as you can see, our Pentaxid tank. We've got our T2 RCSs housed in these little bubbles there. Gravity generator is in here. Big old T2 Jenny is up on the top there. And pretty much that's the extent of our engineering section. If we move through the engineering section, we get to the lower deck. Now we have a very spacious farm that pretty much runs down the whole underbelly of the ship here, with over 60 crop plots. So this ship is capable of producing a pretty decent sized crop. And so I'm going to be planting this with a somewhat of a proper ratio, shall we say, that's mostly going to be geared towards creating rations. We're going to create a bunch of food rations. That's going to be the primary purpose of this farm. Of course, we will also plant a few things that we'll need for medical supplies and whatnot. Okay, here is the mess hall. This is the kitchen / mess hall. This is where the crew sits to have their meals. We've got a couple of food processors. We've got a couple of refrigerators up here that are assigned to the food processors. The green and blue is used for food, and the red is used for medical stuff. That's how I currently have it set up. And yeah, so this is basically where people come to eat. All right, now you can get up to the upper deck from this elevator, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back through here, and we're going to get up from here. Okay, so we can keep kind of working from the back to the front. All right, so when we get up to the upper deck now, we have a nice little view of the engine here, or of the generator, protected from windows. And then this is the medical bay, and this has all the medical equipment that you need in Empyrion. Medical station itself, and we got the stations for all the ailments and diseases and broken legs and all that kind of stuff that can happen to us here in the medical bay. We even have a cryo chamber too. If we need to go into cryo sleep and wake up in 100,000 years from now. Okay, so on to either side now of the medical bay, we've got corridors that run down the length of the ship here. And one of the things I noticed that is fixed here in Alpha, or wait, no, I guess it's not fixed. Wait, I don't have this place pressurized, do I? Do I have any oxygen on me? Let me look at something here real quick. So we need to go... We can't get to the chisel from here. We must be out of range. Okay, never mind. What I was going to say was... They fixed things in Alpha 10 to where oxygen would fill more space in the situation where you had, a partial blocking it, because it used to be this whole corner was not pressurized simply because although these are arched blocks, they're really taking up the whole space. So it was kind of a weird situation. I can't really test that yet until we pressurize the ship, but I'll worry about that later. Okay, here we have the men's facilities, and then if we cross over to the other side, we have the women's facilities. Okay, and then as we go up the hallway here, we can come up into the living quarters. This is the captain's quarters here. So he's got his own storage, and he's got a nice bed and a desk and stuff to work on. And then on the other side here, we've got the first mates, which is really just a mirror image of the captain's quarters here. That's all just funsy stuff, of course. On the other side, on the starboard side of the ship, we have the crew quarters. So both of these rooms have bunk beds in them, and that's where the crew sleeps. Okay. All right, almost done, guys, almost done. If we come up to the front of the ship here, that goes back down to the mess hall that we were at just a little while ago. And then this is the commons area. So this is where everybody hangs out, watches TV, watches the football game, eats some food if they want to bring it up from downstairs, just chills out on the couch and relaxes when they're off duty. Okay. Finally, we have the bridge. So we come through here, and now we're up on the bridge that we looked at from outside earlier. And like I said, all of these seats here are cockpits. I use them just because I liked the design of them. And so there's like different stations on the bridge, one for the science officer, one for the navigation officer, one for the, the helmsman, and so on and so forth. With different displays set up, and, got it decorated pretty cute. From a practical standpoint, of course, I have a small constructor and a container for it if, something needed to be made up here and we didn't want to run down to the lower decks to do that. And we have an armor locker up here too. If we want to get out of the ship from here, this is one way we can do so. This is generally only useful in space. It's not useful to go out that way in Atmo. So we'd have to go down below. But in space, this is a very quick and easy way to get into and out of the bridge if we want to. Yeah, that's why we couldn't reach the chisel, because we are quite a ways away. So guys, that is the tour of the Blacklight. And so I hope you guys think the ship is cool. I really had a lot of fun building it, and I used it a little bit towards the end of Alpha 9, but didn't really didn't use it a whole lot, because at that point in time, Alpha 9 was kind of wrapping up. So it hasn't seen a lot of use yet. So there's probably still some things about it that I'm going to want to tweak as we go along. But I think it's pretty cool, a pretty cool ship, and we're going to enjoy the ship in Season 2. When I start Season 2 of Empyrion Alpha 10, we're going to just spawn this thing in directly. I'm not going to go through the job of farming up the materials again for it, because I already did that here in Season 1, so I feel like I've paid my dues. But the reason why we're going to do a Season 2, and I've talked about this to you guys a little bit before, is because I have discovered all... Shut up, timer. I've discovered all the planets in my game, and there's not very many. There's a very, very small list of planets in here. And so I'm either A, going to move to the multiplayer server, which has over 100 planets and a bunch more, play fields and stuff like asteroid belts and whatnot. Or I'm going to take the config files that we use on that server and set it up in a new single player game, and then start Season 2, so that we have a lot more places to explore and a lot more places to use this ship in. There's just not, there's just not a whole lot going on here in this world. It's disappointingly small. And so, I want to have, I want to spend a lot of time in Season 2 on exploration and just, driving around and checking the place out and going on adventures and stuff. And we need a bigger place to do that. We need more places to go to make that effective. So that's really the main reason why I'm going to start a Season 2. So anyway, we are pretty much out of time, guys, for this episode. And so I'm going to work on the Blacklight. I'm going to add the shield generator. We're going to put a T2 shield generator in here and move that emergency cockpit down to the lower bay, make a couple of changes down there. I'll probably do all of that off camera, so that when we start the next episode, I'll just walk you through what those changes were. And then the other preparatory thing that we have to do is I've got to get this ship stocked. It's going to require a shit ton of fuel. I want to get it well stocked with, all the ores and all the materials that it's going to need. So it's pretty much, a self-sufficient ship. The third thing that needs to happen in season 1 here, before we transition to season 2, is I also want to get the Cylon Raider built and upgraded to Alpha 10 and show you the Cylon Raider and maybe use it a little bit to mess with the Xerax. We are going to eradicate the Xerox off of Hyponos. I'm going to completely cream them and get them off that planet altogether, but I'm probably not going to do the same thing for the rest of the planets in this game. But we will get them, we'll kind of, tie up the loose ends, so to speak, and get them off of Hyponos at least as one of the final things that we'll do to end season 1 here in Empyrion. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.